welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore, and it has been a rough 2 weeks for Cleveland Browns fans. And to discuss all of this is a man who always plays when medically cleared, is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you on this Saturday morning?
Man, I'm great. When the doctors say you can play, you got to play, man. I don't know. I guess that just depends if you like the game or you love the game. I don't know. I love the game. What are you going to do?
That gets us right into what everybody's talking about, which is Deshaun Watson's. He has a shoulder contusion or a rotator cuff contusion. I don't know. They have not been very forthcoming.
At this point, he might not even have a shoulder anymore. I don't know.
I guess I shouldn't say they haven't been forthcoming because he told them he was going to be able to play 2 weeks ago, and then Sunday morning he couldn't drive the ball. He couldn't throw it more than 10 yards, which if that's the case, then he shouldn't be playing. We talked about this with Derek Carr. We talked about this with fucking Baker Mayfield 2 years ago. So It does seem like they're at least listening to the player a little more. But it seems like the player's making this decision completely on their own, because now we're getting reporting from Mary Kay that this injury may be worse than we thought, or at least is worse than what had been previously reported, which once again gets me back to the question of why is he being medically cleared to play if he's not capable of playing? Like, what? We were texting with our boy Sully about this whole mess, and I asked a question to both of you that you both had pretty resounding answers to, but I think it's good for the podcast, which is if you were a player on the Cleveland Browns, how little would you trust the medical staff and the front office and coaching staff to make the best decisions for your health?
Zero. Absolute zero. I would have no trust in the medical staff of the Cleveland Browns. And for us, this goes back to what the debacle we saw with Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
Also, the reports of the last 2 years of Jed Wills needs to learn how to play injured. He needs to learn how to play beat up.
He needs to be
tougher. He needs to get out there and play when he's a little dinged up. That's what Warriors do.
Yeah, even though that 2021 season, he was in and out of the lineup. He was starting games and not finishing them, I think, 2-3 weeks in a row. And then they finally gave him a week off, and then he had the bye, and then he was able to finish off the rest of the season. So clearly he needed rest, but they weren't giving it to him.
Yeah. It's, we talk about this all the time, and it was something a lot of people didn't talk about because it was so easy to just point to Baker and Odell and that was it. But there have been systemic problems with the Cleveland Browns organization since they came back, some of which have never been fixed through ownership, management, whatever. There are just problems that real organizations don't have, that successful winning organizations don't have.
Yeah.
And to believe you were going to pay Deshaun Watson all this money and all of a sudden you're a true Super Bowl contender when your players don't even trust your medical staff is the most laughable, sad thing that Cleveland Browns fans have gotten used to. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. Is it simply as Sully and so many Browns fans have stated, why would somebody with the guaranteed contract on a short length of a guaranteed contract with all that money that Deshaun Watson is on ever play injured? Why? Why would he?
Yeah.
As dynamic as he was at times in Houston, even in Houston, there were reports of that cliche that is a cliche, but there's truth to, of we're not sure how much he loves the game. Like, as soon as it got bad, as soon as they started losing, and maybe some of it was his fault, maybe some of it wasn't, he started to check out. How much does he love the game? And you hate to question that, but as we've talked about, this is their job. Nobody loves their job all the time. And that's just
a misconception that's
just reality
that a lot
of life.
Fans have,
right?
Is that they think the players love the game as much as they do, and no, that's not how it works. A lot of players love the game. We certainly don't want to say that there's a bunch of guys in the league that don't love the game. There certainly are, but there are also guys that this is their job and their love for the game waxes and wanes depending on circumstance.
Yes. So, we feel Baker played hurt because he was trying to get his next contract from the Cleveland Browns. And Deshaun Watson won't play hurt because he already has that guaranteed contract on a short contract. So why would I go out there and play injured? It appears nobody really knows what's going on. Some players in the locker room seem to be upset about it. The media and players, some of them seem to be upset, not necessarily that he's not playing, but he won't step in front of the media and answer questions. We can't hear.
I think
we
that's
can't hear
the
anything.
biggest thing.
Yeah,
we've seen that here with players. We've seen it with not coaches because coaches have to speak, but we've also seen it with front offices where these guys just don't want to address the media and they don't want to clear the air and talk about what's going on. And that's actually more concerning for me than the fact that he can't play. Like, if he's injured and he can't throw the football, then he can't play. Okay, that's fine. The fact that he won't just come in front of the media and say that is concerning because that tells me that he's hiding. And you mentioned the other players on the team, and fair or not, they're questioning his love for the game. Does he want to do this? Is he sitting out because he got paid? Like, all of those things are circulating around, and he can really be a leader and step in front of the cameras and say what's going on. He just has to say what we know he's already said to other people. He just has to say it out loud in front of the cameras to the fans. Look, I tried to drive the ball. I can't throw the ball more than 10 yards. And if I get hit and fall on that shoulder, all right, we may be done for the year. Like, those are all legitimate things, but it's just another circus because this team, this comes back to what we always talk about, Jimmy, is that there's no adult in the room. And there's nobody that wants to take responsibility. Everybody wants to be in charge and be paid like a leader, but nobody wants to be a leader. And nobody wants to do the things that are required of being in charge, the difficult things. And this is one of those difficult things, and Watson's not doing it, and it's a bad look.
So I would like to ask you a question because I can't decide for myself. Is it worse if he is not that injured, could probably play, doesn't want to gut it out? Or is it worse if he's like really hurt and is going to miss 4 to 6 weeks? Which is worse?
The former.
Right?
I mean, if he's really hurt, then he's hurt. And
then that's that.
For all the disaster that there is in being 2 years into a contract and giving up all those picks and having nothing to fucking show for it, that's bad. But if you have a guy on the roster that's guaranteed 3 more years after this one that he's not a gamer, he doesn't want to play. My knee, he's doing that Jonathan Taylor wants a new contract thing. I think that's a really bad look. I think that is terrible heading into next year where they're going to be in cap hell and they're going to need him to really be the Deshaun Watson they thought he would be. And if they're questioning it's so tough to question a player's desire when we don't know the full extent of the injury. I mean, I haven't had rotator cuff. Right. I haven't had rotator cuff problems. I've had other issues with my shoulder from bowling, and I can tell you that sometimes that shit is just really fucking painful. So there may be he may legitimately be hurt, and if that's the case, again, just come out in front of the cameras and say what's going on.
Right, and that goes right back to the no adult in the room. Because why have, and it doesn't have to be a bash moment with him, but why has Stefanski or Barry or the ownership, why has someone not sat Deshaun down in a room and been like, dude, perception-wise, what our organization went through to bring you here on the contract we gave you. You know how we stuck our neck out. I talked about it.
What if he doesn't care? What if he just doesn't care about that? What if he just feels entitled? What if they've had that conversation? Because we've seen that with the front office and players here before, that they're like, I'm not talking to the fans. Like, I'm not dealing with that shit. Like, I don't have to answer, that I don't have to answer to them mentality.
What if they've had that conversation where they've said, dude, you got to talk to the media? And he has said, I'm not the starting quarterback right now. I do not have to talk to the media, and walked out of the room. I mean, oh, Jesus.
Well,
which is why we need somebody to get him.
What I do know is that in 2021, when all of this stuff was going on, the front office was leaking absolutely everything and anything they could about Baker Mayfield to make him look bad. And we're not seeing those leaks now. So maybe that means he is actually injured. I don't know. I don't really know what to make of that. We'll see what happens in maybe 2 weeks if he's still not on the field, if maybe we start getting some leaks and some more stuff comes out. I don't know. This whole thing's a mess, and we'll see how it plays out. But the Cleveland Browns have a game to play tomorrow against the absolute juggernaut San Francisco 49ers. Jimmy, this line was 5 on Wednesday when I first bet it, and I jumped all over it because I knew this line was going to go up, and go up it has. 9.5 is what San Francisco is now favored on the shores of Lake Erie. The over-under sits at 36, minus 550 for the Niners, plus 400 for the Browns on the money line. It's going to be a cold, rainy day, Jimmy. Do you think San Francisco can actually cover this, or can the Browns defense actually show up and keep this relatively close?
I think the Browns defense can show up and the 49ers will still cover this. I think the 49ers could kick 4 field goals and win 12-0.
Yeah, I have the Steelers. I have the Niners minus 5 and the Browns under 16.5 on a parlay that I'm very happy I bet. I think everything you said. I don't know how they're going to score with P.J. Walker. That's the big thing. I don't know how they're going to be able to move the ball consistently. I don't know how they're going to have any semblance of a passing game. Nationally, I've seen people say that you can attack the San Francisco front running the ball, but I guess. But nobody's had a ton of success running the ball against them, and if it's going to be rainy and cold, they're going to be crowded on the line of scrimmage. So I don't know how effective that strategy is going to be.
Maybe with a healthy Nick Chubb and a not banged up offensive line, maybe. Not with what I think.
But with Antonio out, and we're hearing Njoku's going to be out, and you're down to your backup center. Jedrick Wills is a disaster. Just like now we're looking, it's like, all right, well, we got Big Thanos on the right tackle. We'll see what happens there.
Yeah, and maybe this is a Kareem Hunt game. You try to just plug him through the offensively, I don't know. Kevin Stefanski can prove us wrong or prove us right this week, because there's a lot of voices on 92.3 that feel like P.J. Walker can get it done. This Browns defense can actually match up with everything San Francisco wants to do. And maybe there's a 30 to 50% chance the Browns can not only keep it close, but pull the upset. I just don't see it. And I actually...
Something weird is going to have to happen. This isn't the type of game that the Cleveland Browns can just walk in and win conventionally. And this is one of the reasons why I don't think they're going to fare very well, because Kevin Stefanski doesn't like to do that. This is the type of game where I would line up with one receiver and a heavy set with a running back and just this is a game that I would show up with a heavy set, 1 or 2 receivers with a running back, and make it look like you're just going to run and try and pound against that line, and first play from scrimmage, just do a play action, take a deep shot, and try and get a score right off the bat and catch them flat-footed. Like, that's what I think they have to do. They have to do things like that.
There have to be fake punts. There have to be onside kicks. There has to be trickeration. Like, there's no other way.
Preferably trickeration that isn't designed to get you like an 8-yard screen pass, because that shit drives me crazy.
Like, they have to play out of the box in this game, and we don't believe Kevin Stefanski has that in him.
No.
Like,
what do
we
you
don't
think
believe
with
that.
The over-under at 36?
I would wait just to see how bad the weather ends up being tomorrow, but I would definitely lean the under.
Yeah, I like the under here too, because I think this is the type of game that San Francisco is going to jump on the Browns early, or at least try to jump on the Browns early, and then just try and run out the clock to get the fuck out with the win. This is a home game, and if it's 17-0 in the second quarter, how bad do the boos get? You don't even want to contemplate that, do you?
I don't know how bad the boos are going to get, because I think the people that are going to trek out into the stadium this week are going to expect that beatdown and are legitimate, like, diehard loyal Browns fans. So it might not, like, what are we going to do? We're going to boo PJ Walker?
Yeah, I guess that wouldn't make much sense. And plus, you're playing, you have your backup quarterback, your backup running back, at least 2 backup offensive linemen. Well, 3, because center, left guard, and right tackle.
Now, drunk Browns fans do get creative, so you might hear some. You might get to hear some really cool Fire Stefanski chants, maybe.
Yeah.
Like something like that. Like
on the flip side, though, Jim Schwartz's defenses do tend to do pretty well against Kyle Shanahan offenses, but
yeah,
I think this Kyle Shanahan offense is just a different beast.
Well, and I think San Francisco is going to have the ball so much.
Yeah. They'll be able to eventually wear him down, yeah. And we've seen that game before where the Browns' offense is anemic, and even if the defense can show up for a quarter or two, they're not going to be able to sustain it for 60 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, that's enough Cleveland talk. I'm already depressed enough. Up next, we have the Baltimore Ravens. They are traveling to Tennessee to take on the Titans. They will be 4.5-point road favorites when they do. Minus 220 on the money line, plus 180 for the Titans. Over-under sits at 42.5. Baltimore just found a way to lose last week to Pittsburgh, and this seems to be a running theme with Baltimore where they just can't seem to break into that upper echelon of the AFC teams.
That was one of the strangest losses I've seen a team that I think is really good have in a while, because they should have won that game by 4 touchdowns. Like, just drops that should have led to touchdowns. It was weird. I want to actually give kudos to Lamar Jackson, because I was waiting for some kind of freak out moment on the sideline, and it never really happened. And he was actually placing balls in really great spots, and they just weren't catching it. But I think right now, they get one of the, I'm sure the travel to London negative, but getting to play Tennessee is a positive. So I'm gonna take Baltimore to cover here. I think they'll get back on track. I think they may have to lean more on a run game a little bit more, but you can run more on Tennessee than you can on Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But I think they'll probably try to lean a little bit more on the run game and focus more on Mark Andrews, because they know he can catch the ball than the wide receivers.
Yeah, and even he was dropping passes. I agree.
Yeah,
I
that
think
was
Baltimore
weird.
covers this game, because this is another one where that Baltimore defense is not going to let Derrick Henry take over. They're going to force Ryan Tannehill to make throws, and we know what happens when Ryan Tannehill has to make throws. He's gonna throw interceptions. It's gonna be bad, and Baltimore should win this game, I would think, fairly comfortably. A touchdown win over Tennessee on the road should not be difficult for this Baltimore team. Although that was a really tough game, and we do see over the years we've seen Baltimore and Pittsburgh look sluggish the week after the games they play against each other, because they are so tough.
Yeah, I agree. If I had any confidence in Tennessee, I would love Tennessee in this spot.
Yeah, but we're of the same mind when it comes to the Titans.
I am just so off them right now. I can't. But I do agree with you. I absolutely agree with what you're saying. And if it was a lot of other teams that and having to make the trip to London, but I think Ryan Tannehill is going to face the butt of their frustration. So
our next matchup sees the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh, I forgot to mention, the Packers and the Steelers are on the bye this week. So this game is the last one for our AFC North teams. The Bengals are hosting the Seattle Seahawks. They are 3-point home favorites, minus 155 for their money line, plus 130 on the Seahawks. Over-under sits at 45. There's a couple really interesting games that I won't be betting, but I am going to be watching very, very closely, and this is one of them, because Seattle's a good football team, and Cincinnati looks like they got right last week. Both of these teams really need a win which is odd for Seattle, who only has one loss. But to keep pace with San Francisco, they're going to have to keep winning. Cincinnati desperately needs a win because they really can't fall to 2-4. That would be really bad for them. So which of these teams do you think shows up and plays the hardest? Do you think Joe Burrow's finally right?
I don't know if he's right. He's certainly more right than he was, but man, those couple deep throws he threw, you watch that highlight, that was like his whole body.
Yeah.
Getting that ball that far downfield. So I don't know if he's right. I think he's more right. We called it. We said it would be the Jamar Chase squeaky wheel game.
Boy, oh boy.
And it was, and it's what it needed to be. I think I'm like you, I would not bet this game because I think 3 is probably where this game ends up one way or the other. So there's no reason to bet a push. I'm going to take Cincinnati for the purpose of our pod, but I just want to watch this game and see how good Seattle is or how bad Cincinnati is. Like, if this game goes like 10 points either way, we'll learn a lot about both teams.
Yeah, and there's a good chance that I'm going to put both sides of this money line in a parlay with some other teams just to try to get some odds.
Yeah, I like that.
I don't know what else to do with this game because there's so many unknowns. Seattle on the road. How do they look on the road, outdoors? They're going to be dealing with some of the weather that we're dealing with here. And again, it's the Geno Smith. I still don't quite trust him, but I also don't quite trust Joe Burrow right now. I need to see another week of it, but he did look a lot healthier last week, and if he can keep getting healthier, that's something that is scary for the rest of the AFC North, because if they come out of this week at 3-3 and only a game behind the Ravens, who we expect to win, like, Baltimore is going to be kicking themselves for only being a game up on them.
Yep.
Moving to an NFC matchup that is also one that I'll be watching pretty closely, even though I don't think either one of these teams are going to make a lot of noise like Cincinnati and Seattle could, but it's the Atlanta Falcons hosting the Washington Armada. Atlanta, 2.5-point favorites, minus 140 on the money line, plus 118 for the Commanders. Over-under sits at 42.5. Atlanta seems to just live and die by Desmond Ridder, while Washington, they don't have a quarterback, but I think the rest of that team might actually be okay. If Atlanta wants any hope of winning the NFC South, this is a game they have to win.
Yeah, and I don't I'm going to give kudos to Atlanta. Houston did exactly what you should have done last week. They said, we are going to do our best to limit this Atlanta run game, and I'll actually call him by his real name, not Mitter this week. We'll call him Riddler. He actually performed really well, played really well. I don't think he's good enough to put that performance up 2 weeks in a row, so I'm leaning heavy Washington here. I think Washington covers and wins outright.
Wow. I'm going to take Atlanta because they're the team I like and have liked coming into the season, so I'm not betting that. But it is getting to the time where I might be moving off the Falcons because it's just the problems at quarterback are just too much, it looks like.
Yeah.
Another team with quarterback problems in the NFC South is the Carolina Panthers, which is a problem because they just took a quarterback first overall. They are traveling south to take on the Miami Dolphins, who don't have questions at quarterback with Tua Tagovailoa. The Dolphins are 14-point favorites in this game. They are minus 1,000 on the money line. The Panthers are plus 650. Over-under sits at 47.5. That is a big number, Jimmy. Can the Dolphins put up enough to cover it?
Yes. They should win by 17 or 21. So I'll take Miami to cover. I will say, for our bettors out there, with the money line odds like that, keep Miami out of your money line parlays because that's going to bring your odds down.
Yeah,
You'd be better to bet. If you believe, like I do, that Miami can destroy Carolina, then have the balls to bet spread, not the money line, because that's going to really bring your...
Drop it down to 9.5. They're winning this game by double digits, so that's fine. Do a 5, do a 7-point tease with Miami. There's some other...
Yeah.
There's a few other bigger lines, like San Francisco, Cleveland's one you can tease down. Buffalo Giants is another big one you can tease down. So
yeah, but I think Carolina continues to be really, really bad. Miami continues to be really, really good. These like top top 1 through 4 spots in the AFC are going to be interesting to see how these teams shake out as we get farther into the season.
Yeah. Yeah, the race for the number 1 seed is already off and running. Kansas City gets a win over Denver. We didn't talk about that game, but it was kind of a mad game. Kansas City they just look like they're in second gear. They're not worried about it. That defense looks really good. Denver's bad. Everybody's making, like, Denver got that late, like, Kansas City got the late cover. Wait, no, they didn't cover, did they? No, they won by 11.
Yeah, they covered.
They covered. You know, Denver gets that late fourth quarter touchdown, and everybody's like, oh, they kind of made it a game. Like, no, they didn't. That's a shitty late game score that the defense is not really playing their hardest. That Denver team's a disaster. We've talked about it plenty, but the Chiefs now 5-1. If Miami wins, they'll be 5-1. Everybody else has 2 losses at least. So it's shaking out early. Miami with a 1.5 game lead over the Bills for the division right now is big. I mean, Miami or Buffalo, one of those 2 teams is going to be on the road in the first round of the playoffs.
That's scary for a division winner.
Yeah. The upstart Houston Texans, who you mentioned earlier, who are coming off a loss to Atlanta, are home now, and they are taking on the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are 2-point road favorites, -135 on the money line for them, +115 for the Texans. Over-under sits at 42.5. Jimmy, why do people keep thinking the New Orleans Saints are good? Like what is it that has the Texans, who get the home 3, like they think New Orleans is 5 points better on a neutral field?
Because it's still an overvaluation of East Coast bias of the New England Patriots and what New Orleans just did to New England.
I'll buy that. This is a week where I'm all over the Texans. I really like them in this game.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you.
It'll be a good test, though. That New Orleans defense is pretty good. So seeing what C.J. Stroud does against them, but that late touchdown pass that C.J. Stroud threw last week was just, I mean, that's just gorgeous. Yeah, that's great quarterback play.
Yeah, it is. It is. And Houston's got to get a little bit more. They've either got to just lean into C.J. Stroud more or get more creative in their run game, one of the two. But I know their offensive linemen were just coming back, so hopefully with another week, they'll be a little better running the ball, give C.J. Stroud a little bit more time. But I agree with you. I didn't understand this line when I saw it. I mean, New Orleans does have an okay. They have an okay defense. They have a few weapons offensively, but they have quarterback problems, and that matters. So I'm with you. I'm on the Texans here.
The Texans quietly +15 in point differential, even though they're 2-3.
Yeah.
Sticking in the AFC South, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars hosting the Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson's going to be out for a couple of weeks because he just plays so physically. He's going to have to change how he plays, or he's just not going to stay on the field, which means we get more Gardner Minshew. Jacksonville got right in London. Now they come to their actual home. How do you think they look against Indianapolis, Jimmy?
I think Jacksonville wins this game by 2 scores. One of them probably a pick 6. Here we go again. Gardner Minshew playing in a game that matters. I wonder how that'll go for him.
Yeah,
I don't understand.
People love him for some reason, and it's like it's sort of like what happened last year with Jacoby Brissett. Everybody is just like, well, if you just take away like the 6 bad things he does, he's a really good quarterback. And it's like, yeah, but those 6 bad things cost you 6 games. I don't know. Am I right? Am I wrong?
No, because like that was the thing with Brissett, right? Like we're going to talk about this for a minute because we just can never talk about it enough. Like that was the thing. Was like, well, if we take away those 3 interceptions he threw that 100% cost the team 3 wins, he played great. No, he fucking didn't because he threw the 3 interceptions. And that's exactly what will happen with Gardner Minshew. He's not going to have a revenge game. Indianapolis is not going to win this game. Jacksonville is going to go ahead and take control of the AFC South like we told you they were going to. Bet Jacksonville here.
Up next, we have the 1-4 Minnesota Vikings traveling to Chicago to take on the 1-4 Chicago Bears in what can only be described as a game nobody wants to watch.
I don't
The
want to.
Vikings are 3-point road favorites, minus 165 on their money line, plus 140 for the Bears. Over-under sits at 43.5. The only thing that I have written in my notes for this is no Justin Jefferson. Sad face.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I guess I'm taking the Bears. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
I
don't know how
I'll pick the Vikings because I still don't think I don't trust anything going on with Chicago. That team just doesn't look like it's right. And this Minnesota team really, I don't think Kirk Cousins is going to want to be traded heading into free agency. Although I don't know, maybe something opens up for him somewhere where he goes, oh yeah, that's where I want to play. But I just with no Justin Jefferson, Minnesota's been able to move the ball at will. So I expect that to continue. It's just a question of how many interceptions does Cousins throw in the red zone? I don't know.
And, and it's just weird. There was a lot of talk last year, and a lot of the smart numbers guys were talking about it this year. Like the Vikings were damn near perfect in one-score games last year, and that hardly ever happens. And
Yep.
Looks like this year they're just regressing to the mean, which is the world, right?
Oh, Jimmy, you're going to make all the football people mad by using that term.
I know they don't like it, but it's what happens. Sorry, guys. If this is a one-score game, I would take the Bears. Just saying.
Well, if regression to the mean was a football team, I think it would be the Las Vegas Raiders because they're just always in the middle. They are not a good football team. They are hosting the New England Patriots, who are also not a good football team. The Raiders are getting the home 3, minus 155 for them, plus 130 for the Pats. 41.5 is the over-under. It's Josh McDaniels versus Bill Belichick, Jimmy. How do you it's amazing how two teams can basically be in the exact same spot. The Raiders and the Patriots, they're just not good enough on their rosters. They're not good enough at quarterback. They're just not good teams. But nobody is talking about how bad Vegas is. Well, nobody can stop talking about the Patriots. We are going to take a victory lap because we fucking told all of you that Mac Jones is not a quality NFL starter, and he continues to prove us right. But this is a game, Jimmy, where I think Belichick puts something together. I think Jones plays better than Garoppolo, and I think New England actually wins this game.
I agree with you. I think this is my personally, like, if Belichick cannot cook something up to beat Las Vegas this week, I don't know when or how they get another win.
Ooh, that is a tough statement to say, and now I'm going to look up their schedule because I want to see who they're playing.
Like, you've got Josh McDaniels, you've got Jimmy Garoppolo. Like, how to take away a number one wide receiver. The Raiders' run game hasn't been very good. Maybe you make the hook to Bailey.
No. So, yeah, this is a must-win for the Patriots.
Yeah.
Because coming
You're
up,
looking
they
at
have
it now?
two games
with...
Yeah. They have a game with the Bills, a game with the Dolphins. It does even out a little bit. You're going to get the Commanders, the Colts, the Giants. But then you get the Chargers, the Steelers, and the Chiefs. You do get the Broncos, but then in come the Bills again, and then, they get the Jets one more time. That doesn't look like more than 3 wins.
At the most. But I am going to lean with you on this. I still believe Bill Belichick is one of the 2 or 3 greatest football coaches of all time. I did hear something, though, that if the Patriots stick with him this year, they've got to take the GM hat away from him, which may very well be true, but after this year, I think he may be ready to go off in the sunset. Like, I mean, he's eating at McDonald's post-game now. Like, that's...
I think would be the way that this ends, is the season ends and they say we want to bring in a GM, and Bill says, I don't want to do that. And they say, all right, then let's just part. The bigger question would be, does Bill Belichick decide to coach somewhere else next season? Does he take a year off and come back after taking a season off like Sean Payton did? Because he's so close to Don Shula's record. I don't know how much that means to him.
Right.
And with Andy Reid where he's at and being younger, Andy Reid's probably going to put up another 100 wins over the next 10 years.
Yeah, and I can see Belichick too. Like I could see Belichick taking a year off and then, coming back as a defensive coordinator for a coach he respects, and being like, all right, I will hold every offense to like
That
13
would,
points.
that would be such a great troll job.
Like, go win a Super Bowl. I got this side of the ball. Take care of that side.
Well, I have two random crazy scenarios that Bill Belichick ends up splitting with New England and winds up going back to the New York Jets and coaching
That
there
would
as
be-
an FU to New England.
Oh, that would be incredible.
And the other one involves Baker Mayfield, who I said, I always like to joke about what's max pain for the Cleveland Browns, because if you've spent the last 20 years just betting on what is the worst scenario for the Browns, you'd be fucking millionaire a million times over. He's decent enough with Tampa Bay that they're in the playoff hunt. Maybe they make it, maybe they don't. And then in the offseason, when he's a free agent, the Pittsburgh Steelers sign him and win the division next year. He just is a big FU to the Cleveland Browns front office. Like, that would be those two scenarios on the national level would be viewed with so much entertainment, and the first one would be great for us here in Cleveland, and I don't think the second one would be a lot of fun for us.
The second one wouldn't be a lot of fun, but I like both of those. I like it.
It would be entertaining.
It would be entertaining for sure.
A game that should be entertaining involving Baker Mayfield is the Detroit Lions traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Bucs. The Lions are 3-point road favorites, minus 165 for their money line, plus 140 for the Bucs. Over-under sits at 42.5. I was a little surprised, not that Detroit was favored, but that they were favored by 3, considering Tampa Bay's coming off the bye. I'm going to continue believing in Tampa Bay. I like Tampa Bay here, and I like them on the money line.
Yeah, me too. This will be a game where I will be honest in my observations of the Detroit Lions, because plain and simple, you beat the Chiefs by 1 point. If Kadarius Toney catches 3 balls, you lose by 3 touchdowns. You lost to Seattle. You whooped Green Bay, who also got whooped by the Raiders, so big deal. And you beat the Panthers. Like, you have
Yeah.
You beat the Chiefs because Kadarius Toney dropped balls, and your other 2 wins are against trash teams. Like, this is a real opponent, a really good defense. They win this game, I will honestly put the Lions where they probably may belong in the conversation. I don't think I got to worry about that, because the fighting Baker Mayfields are going to win this football game.
We could be going into week 7, We could be going into week 6 with the Browns 2-3, and the fucking Tampa Bay Buccaneers would be 4-1.
Yeah,
that would just be that would be wild. That would just be really wild, and another example of the Browns front office just not seeming to be able to make good decisions, because clearly Baker had more football in him than they thought he did. Up next, we have an East Coast tri-state matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Jets. This one's going to be in the Meadowlands. The Eagles are 6.5-point road favorites. The minus 305 on the money line, plus 240 for the Jets. Over-under on this one sits at 41. Jimmy, this was a line that confused me, because I can put this in a 7-team tease, and all Philly has to do is win. I think Philly rolls pretty easily in this one. I'm not a believer in the Jets in any way, shape, or form. Are you a believer that they've figured something out with their running game and getting something out of Zach Wilson?
Against modest NFL teams, yes. Against the Eagles, no. Like, I don't like. I think their
Jalen
defense
Carter will be out for this game, I saw. So that does hurt their defensive line a little bit, but I don't really think it's going to matter.
Like, I think the Jets' run game and their defense and their skill players are good enough to be competitive and even steal some wins against other average NFL teams. I think the Eagles are one of the 5 best teams in the NFL, so they don't fit into that category. The Eagles win this game by a touchdown. Give me Philly all day.
Yeah, another team.
I probably lean the under here as well. I think that's
I really like the under on this one, because that Jets defense can hold teams.
Yeah.
Another game that I looked at and was like, oh, so I can just tease this 7 points and all the Rams have to do is win, is the Rams hosting the Arizona Cardinals. They are 7-point home favorites, minus 345 on their money line, plus 270 for the Cardinals. Over-under sits at 48.5. The Cardinals aren't a good football team. I know they're playing really hard, but this is getting to be the point of the season where they've got their win, and they're just not good enough, and they're just going to start losing games. And that's what I think's happening for the Cardinals moving forward. I don't know what we can talk about the game first, and then we can maybe talk about Kyle Murray coming back. So what do you think happens in this game?
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, the Rams have played a really tough 5-game schedule for the most part to start out.
Yeah.
They're 2-3. They'll get to 3-3. They'll win this game by a touchdown. I definitely love it on the money line because maybe a backdoor cover might happen. But so this is a team in money line for me this weekend. I think the Rams absolutely win this game. That offense.
It's pretty good.
It's going to be pretty good.
It's pretty good.
If they're against a normal team's pass rush where they can keep Matt Stafford in the pocket, they're going to be really hard to contend with. So, yeah, give me the Rams here. No problem.
Do you think we see Kyler Murray again this year? Or not again. Do you think we see Kyler Murray this year?
No.
Yeah, there's no real incentive for them to play him. But what happens? Like, what the fuck happens with him?
I mean, I guess it's time for us to start looking at his cap hit numbers because I imagine they're drafting a quarterback. I imagine they're going to do the right thing and try to get their organization.
They're going to want to try and get one of those two quarterbacks coming out.
Yeah,
so
I mean, there could be
3
or 4 good ones.
Here's what they're looking at. So next year in 2024, it is. It's not as bad as the Deshaun Watson, but if they cut him this year, it's a $97.5 million dead cap hit. If they cut him after the season, it is $81.5 million cap hit next year. And the dead cap just it's just bad. Like there aren't really any savings next year. So they're going to have to find somebody that wants to trade for him. I mean, that's the only thing they're going to be able to do unless they're going to draft somebody and let them sit for a year with Kyler Murray starting, but that don't make no sense. I don't see how that would work.
As soon as Kyler is healthy, you play him, you see what you got, and then you trade back in the draft for as many picks as you can, and you get as many weapons as possible because you can't waste that much money. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess the best case scenario for them would be to finish the 3rd or 4th worst record.
Yeah. Yep.
So they're not tempted to take a quarterback, and then maybe they can take like Marvin Harrison Jr. and try and make a run with Kyler Murray because I mean it's ugly, man.
Yeah, those are nasty numbers.
It is. It is just ugly. Even if they want to move off of him next year, it doesn't really become after the 2024 season. Once 2025 starts, that's when they can really move off of him, and that's when it makes it more palpable. But that's fucking 2 years away.
Yep.
Whew, that's bad. Another thing that's bad is Daniel Jones' play on the field, which he might not, which isn't going to continue because he has a neck injury. So we get to once again bet against Tyrod Taylor. The Buffalo Bills, fresh off a loss in London, are hosting the Giants. They are 15-point favorites, minus 1,400 on the money line. The Giants are plus 800. Over under sits at 44. This is the Sunday night game. Tyrod Taylor playing. Maybe the Giants get Barkley back, but I don't think it matters. This just feels like Buffalo kicks the shit out of them.
What I said about Miami, it goes to Buffalo as well. Keep them out of your money line parlays this week. The odds are just going to hurt your parlays and your payouts.
Yeah.
Here's what I know about Tyrod Taylor. Tyrod Taylor loses football games.
Yes, he does.
But Tyrod Taylor will play till the last down is down. Tyrod Taylor would play with a hurt shoulder, let me just tell you that.
Shots fired.
And the New York Football Giants will cover this spread.
Really? Wow.
They're gonna lose, but they're gonna cover the spread.
I think Buffalo's gonna bounce back and be ornery. I think they're going to be very ornery coming off their loss.
The ornery tag was wow.
Oh yeah, they're going to be ornery.
I like it.
Plus, it's the roller coaster Josh Allen. He was great 2 weeks ago. He was kind of meh last week, so I think he bounces back and he's going to be good this week.
I don't disagree with any of that. I definitely think it's possible. I think Buffalo wins the game easy, but I think Tyrod will blood, sweat, and tear his way to a 2-touchdown loss. So that one extra point is going to make a difference.
Fair enough. Our last game of the week on Monday night sees the Dallas Cowboys, fresh off their ass whooping at the hands of the Niners, being 2-point road, in quotes, favorites against the LA Chargers, who are, in quotes, home. The money line is minus 130 for the Cowboys, plus 110 for the Chargers. Over-under sits at 51. I keep looking at this game, Jimmy, and that stadium's going to be full of Cowboys fans. It's going to basically be a home game for them. They're coming off getting shellacked, and I think Dallas responds. I still think this Dallas team's good, and I think people are overreacting to what we both expected to happen last week. So it didn't really change my opinion of San Francisco or Dallas because that's what I expected to happen.
I agree with all of that. I absolutely agree with that. I still think Dallas is, depending on what happens in the Detroit-Tampa Bay game, I still think Dallas is the third or fourth best team in the NFC. That being said, I still think the Chargers are going to beat them. I think if the Chargers were ever going to put points on a good defense, it is this week with Kellen Moore. Give me the Chargers and the Chargers
Kellen
money
Moore
line.
Revenge game.
The Mike McCarthy is going to out stupid Brandon Staley, and the Chargers are going to win this game.
Yeah, I guess that is the Mike McCarthy, Brendan Staley is enough for me to just warn everybody about betting this game because those two just find ways to fuck things up.
That's fair too. Yeah.
This is among those games that I'm really interested in. Just how does Dallas respond? What do the Chargers look like in this environment where they're going to be at home?
Yeah, because
the crowd's going to be worse.
Yeah, it's
going to
be all
for the road team.
But it did seem like watching post games and hearing some tidbits. It didn't seem like Dallas thought what was going to happen happened. It felt like they thought they actually had a chance against San Francisco.
Well, I mean, I would hope they thought they had a chance, but I mean, as outsiders, we knew they didn't.
No, I think they really thought they could just line up man-to-man and beat San Francisco, which tells me they might not know who their team is. So I don't know for sure how they're going to bounce back.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
You let Brock Purdy throw 3 touchdowns to their tight end. I don't know, man.
This is a big game for the Chargers. You don't want to fall to 2-3 because we think the Browns will end up being 2-3. Yeah, the Steelers being 3-2 is really fucking up the playoff picture for the AFC because if they end up getting to 9-10 wins, they're going to sneak a playoff spot. And
there's a chance, right? There's a chance Las Vegas sneaks New England this week, and then Vegas is 3-3, and the Chargers are 2-4.
Yeah, or 2-3.
The Chargers need this win. So
yeah, it's the playoff picture is very muddled. It's still very early, but this isn't where you can make the playoffs. But this is definitely where you can put yourself behind the 8 ball and trying to make the playoffs.
Yep, for sure.
Well, that's it, Jimmy. That's the week 6 slate. It has been not as weird of an NFL season as I was expecting, but there's some big games this week that will definitely help us, again, just sort the hierarchy.
Yep. Hey, did you know if you have bet Christian McCaffrey to score an anytime touchdown every game since he's been in San Francisco and just rolled the winnings over every week, you'd be at $14,000?
I don't need to know that.
I'm just saying.
Know that.
I'm just saying you should bet Christian McCaffrey to score a touchdown.
Miner and I have been pretty solid at betting San Francisco to win and McCaffrey to score a touchdown. That's just an automatic bet every week. And the odds have not been as good lately, but just fuck it. We've made so much money with it, you may as well keep rolling with it.
Absolutely.
And we didn't talk about it when we talked about San Fran, Cleveland, so I guess we can kind of go full circle here. I am terrified of what the motion and the misdirection stuff is going to do to the Cleveland defense. I mean, we saw Baltimore run motion across the field and plays that cut against that. And San Francisco does a ton of that shit, and it's not to beat the drum as you have definitely beaten, and I have definitely been on board with you. The linebacking core of the Browns is just not good enough. They don't stay in their gaps. They over pursue. They can be run on with misdirection plays, and it could get ugly.
Yep, it's probably going to get ugly, but we'll persevere, Browns fans. We got this.
All right. Well, that's it, Jimmy. Thanks for joining me today. We'll have a nice day of football to watch tomorrow.
Place I'd rather be, brother.
And I would like to thank all of you for listening. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore, and we are no broken legs.